Lion Bob is going to introduce as the guest speakers for today. Oh, geez, this one here should work.
Acting President Leroy, fellow members and guests. Our guests today are from the Longview Daily News, Marianne Chambers and Rick Parrish. Marianne's not going to talk, but if Rick gets too many tough questions, she's going to take over. So, a little bit about Rick. Rick is president and publisher of the Daily News. The Daily News is owned by Lee Enterprises, so it's traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Rick started his newspaper career in Seattle Times. Then he moved to Racine, Wisconsin, working for the Journal Times and became the publisher. 9 years ago, he moved to Longview and became president and publisher of the Daily News. The Daily News links the Lions to the community and helps us advertise our fundraising events in the community. December is Lions Month, a push for help those less fortunate in the community. We start out with walk and knock, then we do the bell ringing. We have the Christmas party where the gifts are donated to community house children. The Daily News Project in December is Neighbors in Need, which raises money for those less fortunate in our community. Here to talk to us today about Neighbors in Need is Rick Parrish. Please give him a warm welcome.
Here.
Thanks, Bob. Hello, everybody. Thank you for letting me come to talk with you today. Acting President Leroy. Thanks. There you go. So Bob gave me a call the other day, about a month ago, and said, hey, can you come and talk to us at the Lions? And we want you to talk about some of the charitable things you do. And then after about, I don't know, Bob, 10 emails later, we finally came down to, will you talk about neighbors in need? So that's what I came here to talk about today. But after I talk or during the discussion, I'll take whatever question that you might have. So Neighbors in Need is a charity that was started at the Daily News in 1987. And it was started, as a lot of you know, to help feed people, local people. And the primary recipient of the money was the Salvation Army. So that started in 1987, long before I ever got to the Daily News. And over the 30 plus years Neighbors in Need has been in existence, we've raised about $1.3 million. So, well, and the clapping really goes to all of you. It's all the folks who read and donate to the Daily News that really make this happen. You know, we're just kind of the conduit to get the message out and to talk about things. So I grew up in Seattle and started at the Seattle Times, and there are a lot of newspaper charities, but this is one of the best ones I've ever been involved with. So when my family and I moved down here 9 years ago, we started looking at Neighbors in Need internally at the Daily News to say, how's it doing and what can we do to make it better? So 9 years ago, Neighbors in Need was bringing in about $30,000 to $40,000 a year in terms of donations. And so we thought we need to do better. We've got to help feed local people. That's what we really want to do. That's what this is for. And all of you probably know the way it works is people send in money to the Daily News and they say, this is in honor of my mother or my father or my brother or whatever it might be, and then we print it in the paper. It's pretty simple. There's a coupon in the paper every day. It starts on Thanksgiving Day and runs to the end of December. So we started thinking, how do we make this better in terms of how do we appeal to more people? How do we drive more donations to feed local folks? Because that's the end goal. So we decided to add more partnership recipients. So we added St. Vincent de Paul. And then we also said, we need to market this better. So we changed the marketing plan. And then we said, well, you know what? We need to take money through PayPal. So we need to allow people to go ahead and pay digitally, electronically. So we added those things. So in the last 9 years, we went from averaging about $30,000 to $35,000 a year. And over the last 9 years, our average donations that we've taken in each year has gone over $57,000 a year. So we're really proud of that. Yep. So it's in the last 9 years, since 2009, we have brought in just short of $500,000, $496,000. Now, when someone donates to Neighbors in Need, I get these questions all the time. They'll say, hey, how much money do you all take in the Daily News? So when I give Neighbors in Need $1, how much do you take? And the short answer is we take none of it. So we are a state-registered 501c3 charity. So your donation is tax deductible. And the Daily News pays for 100% of all the marketing, of all the transaction fees, of all the banking fees, of all the reporting, of all the attorney's fees, and everything else. So we took in $496,625 in the last 9 years, and $496,625 went to the charities. So we're really proud of that as well. So some people ask, how do you choose where the money goes? So the Salvation Army does just a huge amount of good work locally, helping feed people. Folks like Hal Palmer obviously knows much more about that than me. But others do great work as well. So Marianne and I literally went around and started touring all the different charitable facilities to see what they do. And we wanted to keep, if we were going to add partners, we wanted to keep it in the spirit of helping to feed people. Because that's how Neighbors in Need was started, to feed local people during the holidays and throughout the year. So we went to food banks, we went all over the place. I forget how many places we actually went to. And we decided we would add St. Vincent de Paul. And so they have been a great partner as well. And people have started donating because they'd say, you know, I like to give my money here, or I like to give my money there. And when you broaden the number of places that benefit, it really helped to drive more donations. So we chose the two charities, one based on, you know, the spirit of Neighbors in Need and how it was started, and the second one based on, we thought St. Vincent's was one of the best run charities around. So you say, okay, well, what makes for a best run charity? Well, how much money do they take and use? When we give them $1, does $1 go to feed someone, or does half of that go for other stuff? So we went to each of these charities and said, okay, tell us, open up your books to us. If you want money, we want to see the books. And so, for example, at St. Vincent de Paul, they take no salaries. There's no paid help. It's all volunteer. When we give St. Vincent's $1, they use that full $1 to try and feed someone. So then a couple of years ago, we were hit with several scandals, the YMCA, United Way, and others, where money was being either misappropriated or somehow not accounted for. You all remember some of those? There's some pretty big dollars out there.
Read it in the Daily News.
Read it in the Daily News. There you go. There you go. So we went to both of our charitable partners, the Salvation Army and St. Vincent de Paul. This is about 3 years ago now, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago. And we said, look, if you're going to be our partners, we need some guarantees that your books are in order. So I went to the board meetings and I sat down and I said, look, if you want money from us, you're going to have to open the books, and then you're going to have to prove to us you have strong internal controls and that you use good financial practices so that when this money goes to you, we can have some level of comfort that it's being accounted for and used appropriately. So, and in addition to that, as the president of a local business that is also part of a larger corporation, I have to sign a quarterly document about our financial statements that say they're all accurate. And at the bottom of this document, it's about 15 pages deep, it says, if we find that what you've said isn't true here, we can take your house and your car and your kid's college fund and the whole bit. It's not a lot of fun to sign that, so you want to be sure that things are correct. So we modified that and said, look, Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, you're going to have to sign the same thing. And you're going to have to send it to us and guarantee us that these accounting principles are being used, the internal controls are in place, and the money's been accounted for, and that if any has been lost, stolen, or otherwise misappropriated, that you report it to us every quarter, every 3 months. And so every 3 months, we get this form sent back to us, and if we don't get the form, we call them up and we say, hey, I guess you don't want any money. At which point, we get the form. And we also told them, look, you better tell the truth on the form, because if I have a form here from St. Vincent de Paul that says you accounted for all this money right, and then I find out later that you didn't, that's going to make some headlines in the newspaper that doesn't look too great. So help me out here, folks. Let's make sure we do this and do it well. And, you know, we then went out to the people who donated and said, we're only working with folks who are taking care of the money. So the Daily News doesn't take any administrative fees. Our partners handle the money well. They feed people locally. And it's really been what I think is a great partnership. And people have responded by donating more money than ever. So it's one of the things, you know, when that day comes that I leave the Daily News, this is going to be one of the things I'm most proud of, is the work we've done with Neighbors in Need. And I'm not going to talk about it, but just for one or two sentences. But we also started a second charity called Students in Need with Lower Columbia College to help drive money to keep people in school at LCC who can't afford to stay in school and are dropping out. And over the last 2 years, we've raised $85,000 for them as well.
Wow.
So in the last 9 years, when you take all the Neighbors in Need money and all the Students in Need money, the Daily News has been a part of raising $581,000 for the local community. So that's an amazing thing. That is a lot of money, almost $600,000. But what probably doesn't get as much notice is that we print things for free in the paper every single day. You might recognize on Wednesdays, you can adopt a pet right out of the paper. Can you imagine the cost of all that space for the last 30 years for the free pet photos? Right? All the announcements that everybody puts in that we do for free. The walk and knock bags that we insert into the paper and distribute for free. The Luminaria bags that we insert into the paper and distribute for free. All the coverage of different things that helps people drive money to help people. It's really a core mission of what the newspaper does, but most people don't think about it that way because they read the news and they want to know. Bob's up here going, hey, I'll just ask you this before anyone else does. I mean, why wasn't the score of the games in the paper this morning? I mean, what's going on? And that's what people want to know about, and I get that. But this charitable aspect of what we do is huge, and Mary Ann and I spend a lot of time on this and a lot of energy and effort, and we appreciate the chance to come and tell you about that today. So what sort of questions does anyone have about Neighbors in Need or anything about the Daily News at all? Yes, Hal.
So if I make a donation, will you not publish the Seahawks score? And for my friend back to the USC score.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Yes, because Gonzaga will take the place of it. So
There you go. Yes, ma'am.
You said that you feed people. Is that all that your Neighbors in Need offers, or is there other assistance?
The short answer, so the question is, you know, I said that we give the money to St. Vincent de Paul and to the Salvation Army so they can feed local people, and are there other things that they do? At St. Vincent's, it's focused on feeding folks. And at the Salvation Army, Hal could give you a better spiel on all the different things that they do. There is a lot of obviously feeding folks there.
Lunch every day.
Lunch every day, as well as, you know, they do things like, we were in line at the Army the other day, talking to people, and they were giving out lunch boxes where they give food for a week, but it's primarily focused on feeding folks.
So you're helping those agencies provide supplies.
Correct. So we give them money, and that helps them to buy supplies and to pay for the lights and the things in the buildings, and to make sure folks have food during the holidays. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for you. Years back, when a club would have a fundraiser or an event that the club would do to raise money, you would get the free ad, and then you had to start paying for it. The free one came up to it was minuscule in the paper, so if you didn't know to look for it, you wouldn't see it. Have you thought about going back to providing that free in charge to your other club?
we already do a free ad once in our club.
Pardon?
We already do a free ad, a bench ad for nonprofits.
All right. So the question is, we used to give a free ad, and then it got smaller. So I'm being told here by Mary Ann that we give one free ad a month.
To an organization a month. So
To one organization a month.
Lions
But
would have 12.
the other thing that we do, that we instituted years ago when I got here, is what we call the it's either 50% off or buy one, get one. So if an organization wants to buy an ad, we make it so incredibly cheap and easy for them to buy that you can buy it, and we give you a heavy discount on that. And the reason we did it that way is everybody wants a big free ad, and it gets a little overwhelming at times. So if you want an ad for some event, you call Mary Ann or myself, and we'll make sure you get a very, very low-cost ad. Yep. We also provide Nancy Edwards in the newsroom. If you call or send her an email, we tend to be able to write something about it as well in terms of making sure there's at least an announcement. Yep. No other questions, Hal?
Well, I'll switch over to a different topic, if that's okay. Newspaper business has been severely damaged by the internet and the big guys. Do you have a feeling where this is headed? Is this the bottom and it's coming back, or?
So the question is, Hal said, newspaper industry has changed a lot. It's been challenged and damaged, as you put it, by the internet. Where's it going to go? Is this the bottom? Is it on its way back up? And the short answer is yeah, it has been damaged, and no, it hasn't, because everybody has one of these. So now I can literally get to every single person who has one of these through tdn.com, through our mobile app. We have a variety of apps if you just want to see houses for sale, all sorts of stuff. So it's given us, the internet's also given us a chance to reach a lot of people that we couldn't reach before. But folks, a lot of folks who are roughly, I would say, in their 40s, late 40s, early 50s and above, they still love to read it in print. My wife, she does not read the paper online. She does not like that. She likes to read it in print every morning. Same way, Hal. And so we have actually broadened our readership. It's just across all these different mediums now. It's not just all in print like it used to be. So people then say, well, the newspaper is dying because you're not putting out as many. Well, we're not putting out as many in print, but we're serving even more people through all these other ways. So it's changing a lot. At the same time, the advertising, the retail advertising landscape, where we've gotten a lot of our revenue from, is changing a lot. Right? We don't have Macy's anymore. Well, why don't we have Macy's? Well, a lot of people will tell you it's because Amazon has taken a lot of their business, or that other companies have. So as the retail landscape changes, it changes our business as well. We're one of the few businesses or industries that actually touches all parts of society. So we have readers, we talk to readers, citizens, we work with the government, right? Local government, we report on them, we work with them, state government, sometimes even the federal government. We also deal with all sorts of business and industry. I mean, we talk and work with everybody, and all of it affects our business in some way. So we're a little bit unique that way. I mean, when we put out a newspaper every day, we don't just have one customer being the reader, but we also have another customer, and that's the advertiser. So I have a minimum of 2 customers, so to speak, 2 customer groups. So all of that goes together in our business to make us deal with a lot of different change. Now, the better the economy does, the better we do. The better the local economy does, the better the newspaper does. Because more people read, more people spend money with local businesses, more businesses advertise. And so our business, I think, is on the way up from an economic standpoint, but still has some turmoil over where the revenue comes from as all the Macy's and things go away.
It's not like Amazon puts an ad in your paper, right?
That's right. Yes, sir.
I have an interesting question, but I think I can be loud enough where you can hear me. I hear a lot of people saying, and I don't know if you can control this, that a lot of the articles, and I know I respect you and all the articles you give, but a lot of it's not true. I don't think you have anything to do with that, but what's your mind about some of it?
Okay, so the question is, people have mentioned to the gentleman that there are articles in the paper that aren't true, and I think what you're getting at is the whole issue of fake news. That most people hear is called fake news.
Fake news and
Alternative facts.
Alternative facts, okay.
alternative, or, they're not believable.
Okay, so let me touch on it from a national level first, and then I'll touch on it on a local level, okay? So on a national level, the media has truly turned to being hyper-partisan. So if you want to go to Fox News, you're going to get one perspective and one perspective only. That's the conservative perspective. If you go to CNN or MSNBC, all you're pretty much going to get is the liberal perspective. There is no such thing as, in my personal opinion, as journalism on these channels. All you are getting on these channels is their opinions. And it has also affected the newspaper from what we call a nationally syndicated standpoint. So we don't cover issues in Afghanistan. We don't cover issues in New York City. We don't have reporters running all over those places. So we pay into a syndication, right, so that we can run stories from the New York Times or from other locations, right, through the Associated Press. Well, a lot of these organizations have turned themselves into advocates as well. So I've been particularly upset with where the Associated Press has gone. The Associated Press has taken a stance on many issues, and they've decided that they're going to press this stance, and I don't think that's the right way to do journalism. We're supposed to report the facts. We're not supposed to tell you what our opinion is unless it's on the opinion page. And so when we don't have access, there aren't 55 national news syndications to go to. There's just a few, right? You can go to Reuters, you can go to AP. And the Associated Press has the best coverage of all, because don't forget, I get all my sports and different things from Associated Press too. So to get rid of them is very hard, because the value of the paper would go down so substantially. So what ends up happening is I pay all this money for Associated Press so you can have national news, and I can have national news, but it's really what I would call, you would call it fake, others would call it very biased.
Well, I'm not knocking how you're doing it, but
No, that's okay.
that's not a good question.
It's a very good question, and I'll tell you what, it really frustrates me. Because every day our job is to bring you the most value we can and let you know what is going on locally and around the country about the things that you care about and that affect your life. I often ask a group, people will say, "Hey, Parrish, why'd you have this thing in the paper?" And I'll say, "Hey, will you define news for me? What is news?" Right? And then they fumble around, and that's what we do every day. We define what news is for our local community. And on a local level, I just want to finish one last thing. We go out and our reporters talk to the police, they talk to the judges, they talk to the citizens that are involved in issues, right? And we source every story. There's no anonymous sources in the daily news, in a local story. And there are times we get things wrong where we make a mistake. Someone says, hey, the number was 5, and we write down the number is 8, and we screwed it up. But we correct those. Okay? You have someone to call to get it fixed. But our stories are not written locally, our news stories, with a bias in them. Say, you bet. That was a good question. And yes, sir.
I'm one of those guys that used to get my newspaper at night, and I was very happy with that. Now I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I walk a half a mile to my mailbox, or my strip box, and sometimes the paper's not there, especially on Monday.
If you wait by that mailbox all day Monday and all day Monday night, it'll show up.
The problem I have with that is that by the time I get back in the house, then I have to go the other way, a quarter mile to the outhouse.
Then he has to use the paper at the outhouse. Well, someone tell you that's all it's worth some days, right? Yes, ma'am. When is the Daily News going to get a real live proofreader? First of all, I can't thank you enough for asking this question. And you're all laughing at me, but I'm serious. I'm dead serious. So this is what happens, okay? So a reporter goes out, right? So Acting President Leroy, he's our reporter today. So he goes out and he covers the Lions meeting, right? And he writes down, this is what happened. and we had jokes, and we had a taco bar, and it was just a great time. And so he puts that into the computer. And then Marianne is Leroy's editor, and Marianne jumps into that file, and she starts making changes to it. Now, Leroy, he knows his job, so acting president Leroy, sorry. So he's already spell checked. Okay? So then editor Marianne jumps into that same file, right? It's a common file that they can all jump into, and she edits it, and she makes some changes. And then Leroy comes back and he says, hey, this thing happened and this thing happened. I just, I didn't get it. Hal Palmer, I tried to talk to him. He called me back later. I didn't get this piece of the story in, so now I'm going to go in and change it again. So then acting president Leroy changes the story, and then editor Marianne goes back in as well later on to relook at it one last time. And then we find out that as our puzzle goes together of what the paper is going to look like the next day, that we don't have enough space for all of acting president Leroy's story. So we got to cut it down. We got to cut it down, and we still have to get the message across of what happened at the Lions meeting, right? Because I don't have endless space in the paper. So then editor Marianne goes in and starts changing it some more. And what happens through all of that, a lot of it on deadline, is someone will make a change and they'll make a mistake. Now the story's has been proofread a dozen times. The spell checker's been run a dozen times, and those few last changes weren't. And that can often get you. And that's a challenge. And we face that on deadline at nearly midnight every night as we're rushing to get everything in. And that's sort of how it happens. Now, is that an excuse for that to happen? The answer is no. The answer is no. But that's how it does happen. And most people just think, well, you don't spell check anything, Parrish. And it's like, yes, we do. We spell checked it.
Change it.
Yeah. But the problem is that we're constantly trying to make it better. And so that's how it happens. Yes, sir.
I actually just wanted to send kudos out to your delivery staff. In 20 years, I've missed 3 papers.
Oh.
In 20 years.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Tip your courier to bring you your paper.
Thank you.
Wow, we never get that.
I think I missed 2 in 40 years.
Thank you. We appreciate that. The carriers work very, very hard. And they get up and who's willing here to get up and meet us out behind the Daily News at 1:30 in the morning, 6 days a week?
I did it 7 years in Vancouver.
Did it 7 years in Vancouver right here.
I could pay someone to be there.
There you can, okay. Okay, Doug's going to pay somebody to be there. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to do a comparison. You happen to have the privilege to be in the world's best service club setting, and I know that you belong to another
He's gonna get an application.
Some time ago in your editorial space, you named names of several other Rotarians.
Oh, we talked about
With the
Steve.
expectation that they would be fined at their meeting.
Oh.
Steve.
And I just want you to know that had it happened here, we would have fined you for all of it.
Oh. Well,
That was so funny.
I know. I think acting President Leroy is letting me know that we've come to a conclusion. So, a couple last things. First of all, Happy New Year, and thank you so much for listening and allowing me to show up today. Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Also, I want to thank all of you who read the Daily News. It really is important to know what's going on in your community and what's going on your street and with your school district and your police force. And then also, I want to thank you for both Marianne and me. We love the lights. We love the Christmas lights. The community loves the Christmas lights. Thank you so much for that. And all right.
Good job, Brad.
Thank you for your talk. I love them for your favorite. And if you decide to jump from someplace, there's
There's an application.
for Lions.
Thank you.
Lions.
Thank you.